Bang. Lawrence's crutch struck the corridor floor. Smoke choked his throat. The 35th floor corridor was hell. Fire alarms pierced his ears, and water from sprinklers soaked the carpet. Lawrence dragged his right leg, searching for an emergency exit. Without his crutch, he couldn't take a single proper step. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps echoed behind him. Lawrence turned around. A girl around 10 years old was pushing a cleaning cart through the smoke. Soot covered her face, and a wet rag was clutched in her small hands. "Mister, you'll die if you stay here." The girl stopped in front of Lawrence. Her breathing was rough, but her eyes were clear. "Take my hand." Lawrence flinched. The child extended her small hand toward him. She was going to save a man with a crutch. "Who are you?" Lawrence asked, but instead of answering, the girl grabbed his arm and pulled. She was strong. The smoke grew thicker. Flames sparked at the end of the corridor. Lawrence coughed, and the girl supported his crutch. "That door is blocked. Come this way." The girl led the way. Lawrence had no choice but to follow. If not for this child, he would have already given up. The girl pushed her cleaning cart across the corridor. Lawrence limped behind her. Every time his crutch slipped, the girl caught him. "How did you get here?" "I came to clean. Instead of my mom." The girl's answer struck Lawrence's heart. A 10-year-old child was working in place of her mother. Bang, bang, bang. Something fell from the ceiling. The girl pulled Lawrence against the wall. A fireball swept past where they had been standing. Lawrence looked at the girl's face. She wasn't terrified. Instead, he saw determination to protect him. "Why are you trying to save me?" The girl looked up. A smile spread across her soot-covered face. "Because people should help each other." At that moment, Lawrence knew. This child was special. Bang. The emergency exit door flew open. Maya had kicked it. "It's blocked." Black smoke poured from beyond the door. Lawrence coughed and stepped back. His crutch scraped the floor. Maya didn't give up. She pushed her cleaning cart to the next door. Lawrence limped after her. Bang, bang, bang. Maya opened door after door. Behind every door, flames waited. "No good. They're all blocked." Maya's voice trembled. Fear crept in for the first time. Lawrence looked at the end of the corridor. Smoke approached like a wall. With his crutch, he couldn't move quickly. He leaned against the wall. "You go alone," Lawrence said. Maya shook her head. "No." Maya grabbed Lawrence's arm. Her small hand had strength. "I can't leave you alone." At that moment, Lawrence's heart warmed. After his accident, everyone had avoided him. After he became disabled, no one waited for him. But this child was different. Bang. Something collapsed from the ceiling. Maya pulled Lawrence close. They pressed against the wall and held their breath. "There's a service passage over there." Maya pointed to a corner of the corridor. It was a hidden door that only cleaning staff knew about. Lawrence hesitated. Could he walk through a narrow passage with his crutch? Maya took his hand. "I'll help you." Lawrence looked into Maya's eyes. Light shone from her soot-covered face. He gripped Maya's hand tightly. "Let's go." Maya led the way and opened the service passage door. It was narrow and dark, but there was less smoke. Lawrence abandoned his crutch. He put his hand on Maya's shoulder and limped forward. Boom, boom, bang. Explosions sounded behind them. The corridor was collapsing. Maya supported Lawrence more firmly. They pushed through the darkness. "We're almost there." Maya's voice was hopeful. For the first time, Lawrence thought he might survive. Thanks to this small child. Light appeared ahead. It was the exit. But then, a massive explosion roared behind them. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions erupted in succession. The service passage walls shook. Maya pulled Lawrence harder. His legs wobbled, but he didn't stop. "Hurry." Maya's voice was desperate. Light leaked from the end of the passage. but heat pressed from behind. Flames were chasing them. Lawrence's breathing grew rough. His legs lost strength. It had been so long since he'd run like this. Maya draped his arm over her shoulder. A 10-year-old child was supporting a grown man. Thump. Lawrence hit the wall. He gasped for breath. "I can't go on," Lawrence muttered. Maya looked at him. Tears formed in her soot-covered eyes. "You can't give up." Maya took Lawrence's hand. It was small but warm. "My mom said to try until the end." At that moment, Lawrence saw something in Maya's eyes. Not despair, but hope. Bang, bang, bang. More explosions sounded behind them. The passage began collapsing. Maya lifted Lawrence up. The child's strength was unbelievable. "We're almost there. Just a little more." Maya ran ahead. Lawrence limped after her. A door appeared at the end of the passage. Maya grabbed the handle. Bang! The door opened. Cold wind hit their faces. Outside was the rooftop. Helicopter noise filled the air. Maya pulled Lawrence out. They both collapsed on the rooftop floor. Lawrence looked at the sky. He could see stars. He couldn't believe he was alive. Maya lay beside him. She was gasping but smiling. "We did it," Maya said. Lawrence looked at Maya. This small child had saved his life. But then, smoke began seeping from the rooftop door. The flames were spreading to the rooftop. The rescue helicopter was still far away. Lawrence realized. The real danger was just beginning. Bang! Maya kicked the rooftop railing. "Here. There are people here." Maya's voice tore through the night sky. Lawrence lay collapsed on the rooftop floor. His face had turned pale. Blood flowed from his leg. The wound had reopened while running from the fire. Maya rushed to his side. She touched his forehead with her small hand. It was hot. "Mister, wake up." Lawrence's eyes closed. His breathing grew rough. Maya ran back to the railing. She looked down. It was 35 floors high. The fire trucks looked like ants. "Help us! Someone collapsed up here." Maya shouted until her voice was hoarse. But no one could hear. It was too high. Helicopter noise filled the air. Lights moved in the distance. But they were heading toward another building. Maya searched her pocket. There was a small mirror her mother had given her. It was for makeup, but now it was a rescue signal. Maya held up the mirror and reflected light toward the helicopter. Sparkle, sparkle. Light flashed from the mirror. The helicopter changed direction. It was coming this way. Maya ran to Lawrence. She took his hand. It was cold. "Hold on. The rescue team is coming soon." Lawrence opened his eyes. His focus was blurry. "Why me?" Lawrence muttered. Maya gripped his hand tighter. "Because people should help each other." Maya answered. The corner of Lawrence's mouth lifted slightly. The helicopter approached. Wind blew fiercely. Maya's hair whipped around. A rescue worker descended on a rope. Maya waved her hands. "Here. The man is hurt." The rescue worker put Lawrence on a stretcher. Maya climbed into the helicopter too. Looking down from the sky, the hotel was a giant torch. The entire 35th floor was burning. Maya didn't let go of Lawrence's hand. The pain didn't leave his face. The helicopter flew toward the hospital. Beep, beep. The heart monitor beeped. Lawrence convulsed on the stretcher. The rescue worker put an oxygen mask on him. Maya crouched in a corner of the helicopter. Her small hands trembled. "Blood pressure is dropping." The rescue worker shouted into his radio. The helicopter noise made it hard to hear. Lawrence's face grew pale. His lips turned blue. Maya crawled to the stretcher. The rescue worker tried to stop her, but Maya was already holding Lawrence's hand. "Mister, are you okay?" Maya whispered. Lawrence opened his eyes. His focus was blurry, but he saw Maya. His mouth moved. The sound was quiet because of the oxygen mask. "Thank you," Lawrence muttered. Maya leaned her ear close. Lawrence's breathing was rough. "You're my lifesaver." Lawrence's hand gripped Maya's tightly. It was cold but had strength. Tears formed in Maya's eyes. She was relieved that the man was alive. Lawrence opened his mouth again. This time it was clearer. "I wish you were my daughter." At that moment, the helicopter fell silent. Even the rescue worker looked at Maya. Maya held her breath. It had been 3 years since she'd heard the word, Dad. After her real father died, no one had said such words to her. Tears flowed from Lawrence's eyes. The oxygen mask fogged up. "Why did you save me?" Lawrence asked. Maya couldn't answer. It was just the natural thing to do. When someone is in danger, you help them. But to Lawrence, it was a miracle. For so long, no one had risked danger for him. Only people who approached him for money. The helicopter landed on the hospital rooftop. Medical staff rushed over. When Lawrence was being taken off the stretcher, he didn't let go of Maya's hand. "What's your name?" Lawrence asked. "Maya. Maya Williams." Maya answered. Lawrence tried to remember that name. But his consciousness faded. The stretcher disappeared into the emergency room. Maya was left alone on the rooftop. Cold wind blew. She didn't know that the man she'd just met was one of the wealthiest people in the city. And she didn't know that this meeting would completely change her destiny. Crash. Lawrence's fist slammed against the hospital bed rail. The metal rang like a bell. "Find her." His voice cut through the sterile air. 3 days had passed since the fire. 3 days of nightmares about smoke and a small hand pulling him to safety. The private investigator shifted uncomfortably. Lawrence's bandaged leg throbbed, but his eyes burned with determination. Maya Williams, 10 years old. Her mother works cleaning jobs. The investigator nodded and left. Lawrence stared at the ceiling. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face covered in soot, heard her voice saying people should help each other. His phone buzzed. A text message with an address. Lawrence was in his wheelchair and heading to the elevator before the nurse could protest. The apartment building stood in the poorest part of the city. Paint peeled from walls like diseased skin. Lawrence's driver hesitated at the entrance. "Sir, maybe we should wait here." Lawrence maneuvered his wheelchair through the narrow hallway. The elevator was broken. He had to take the service lift, which reeked of garbage and despair. Apartment 4B. Lawrence knocked. The door opened a crack. A woman's tired eyes peered out. Dark circles, premature wrinkles, hands cracked from cleaning chemicals. "Mrs. Williams?" The door opened wider. Behind the woman, Maya appeared. Her face lit up like sunrise. "Mr. You're okay." Maya rushed forward. Lawrence felt something crack inside his chest as she hugged his wheelchair. The woman, Sophie, stepped back, suspicious. Rich men didn't visit their building. Ever. "Maya told me what happened. I wanted to thank you properly." Lawrence pulled out an envelope. Sophie's eyes widened at the thickness. "We can't accept." "You can. You will." Lawrence's tone brooked no argument. Sophie's hands trembled as she took the envelope. Maya bounced on her toes, chattering about the fire, about how scared she'd been, about how happy she was that he survived. Her words tumbled over each other like water over rocks. Lawrence found himself smiling. When was the last time someone had been genuinely happy to see him? "Would you like to visit my office sometime? Both of you." Sophie started to refuse, but Maya's gasp cut her off. "Really? Can we, Mom? Please." Sophie looked between her daughter's shining eyes and Lawrence's steady gaze. Something in his expression made her nod. 2 days later, Maya pressed her nose against the glass elevator as it climbed to the 50th floor. Lawrence watched her wonder, feeling something unfamiliar warm his chest. His office occupied half the floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below like a circuit board. Maya ran to the windows, her small hands leaving prints on the glass. "You can see everything from here." Lawrence's assistant brought lunch. Real food, not the processed meals Maya was used to. She ate with careful politeness, eyes wide at the abundance. "Do you live here?" "Sometimes. When work keeps me late." Maya nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. She explored his office like an archaeologist, touching nothing but absorbing everything. Lawrence found himself explaining his business, his hotels, his plans. Maya listened with the intensity of a scholar, asking questions that surprised him with their insight. For 2 hours, he forgot about profit margins and board meetings. He forgot about the loneliness that had eaten at him for years. He simply talked with a child who saw him as a person, not a bank account. When they prepared to leave, Maya hugged him again. "Thank you for lunch. And for being nice to Mom." After they left, Lawrence's office felt hollow. The silence pressed against his ears like deep water. He didn't notice the figure watching from the parking garage as his driver took Maya and Sophie home. Stephen Grant had been following his stepdaughter all day. The man in the wheelchair, the expensive car, the obvious wealth, it all added up to opportunity. That night, Stephen cornered Maya in their cramped kitchen. Who was that man? Maya looked up from her homework, pencil stub clutched in her small fist. "Mr. Lawrence. He's nice." Stephen's hand shot out, gripping Maya's wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but firm enough to hurt. "Listen to me, you little brat. Rich men don't help people for free. He wants something." Maya tried to pull away. Stephen's grip tightened. "Don't get ideas above your station. We're nothing to people like him. You understand." Tears formed in Maya's eyes, but she didn't cry. Stephen had taught her that tears only made things worse. "I understand." Stephen released her wrist. Maya rubbed the red marks, but said nothing. "Good girl. Now finish your homework." Stephen left the kitchen, already planning. If this Lawrence character wanted to play benefactor, Stephen would make sure he paid handsomely for the privilege. The next morning brought chaos. Lawrence's phone rang at 6 a.m. Charlotte Green, the hotel manager, sounded panicked. "The fire investigation team wants to interview you again. They're asking about safety protocols, about why the emergency exits were blocked." Lawrence sat up in bed, instantly alert. "What aren't you telling me, Charlotte?" Silence stretched across the connection. "There might be irregularities in our safety reports. Minor ones. Nothing that would have prevented the fire." Lawrence's blood turned to ice. "You falsified safety documents?" "Not falsified. Simplified. The city inspectors are so picky, and the costs of full compliance." Lawrence hung up. Within an hour, he was in his office, pulling files, making calls. The scope of Charlotte's deception unfolded like a toxic flower. Blocked exits to maximize retail space. Disabled sprinkler systems to prevent water damage to expensive furnishings. Safety inspections bought with campaign contributions and expensive dinners. People had died because of these shortcuts. Maya had nearly died. His hands shook as he reached for his phone to call his lawyer. But Charlotte burst through his office doors first, her face flushed with desperation. "Lawrence, please. We can fix this quietly. No one has to know. Get out." His voice was quiet, but Charlotte stepped back as if slapped. "You don't understand. If this comes out, it destroys everything. The company, the jobs, the shareholders. Get out." Lawrence's roar shattered the morning calm. His coffee cup flew across the room, exploding against the wall. Charlotte stumbled backward, fear replacing calculation in her eyes. "You're making a mistake. I have friends, Lawrence. Powerful friends. Cross me, and you'll regret it." She slammed the door behind her. Lawrence sat in the wreckage of his morning, chest heaving. Maya's face floated in his memory, soot-covered, determined, brave. She had risked everything to save him from a fire that existed because of corporate greed. He picked up his phone and dialed the fire marshal's direct line. That afternoon, Maya found him sitting in the hospital chapel. She slipped into the pew beside him, her presence as gentle as candlelight. "Mom said you looked sad when we saw you in the lobby." Lawrence glanced down at her. She had come to comfort him. A 10-year-old child offering solace to a grown man. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard. Maya nodded sagely. "Mom says the right thing is usually the hard thing. That's how you know it's right." They sat in comfortable silence. Around them, the chapel held its breath. "Mr. Lawrence?" "Yes. I want to be like you when I grow up. Someone who helps people." Lawrence's throat constricted. This child saw him as a hero, when he felt like nothing but a fraud. A man whose company's negligence had nearly killed her, and she wanted to be like him. "Maya, I want to have a big office and help people who don't have enough money for things. And I want to make sure buildings are safe so nobody gets hurt in fires." Each word hit Lawrence like a physical blow. She had taken their shared trauma and transformed it into purpose. While he wallowed in guilt and rage, she had found hope. "That's a wonderful dream. Do you think I could do it? Even though I'm just Maya from the poor apartments?" Lawrence turned to face her fully. Her eyes held galaxies of possibility. "I think you could do anything you set your mind to." Maya beamed. Lawrence felt something shift inside his chest, like tectonic plates finding new alignment. But neither of them noticed Stephen Grant watching from the chapel entrance, his face twisted with calculation and growing resentment. The game was changing, and Stephen intended to win. Crack. Lawrence's coffee cup shattered against the marble floor of his office. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the morning silence. Maya flinched in her chair, her small hands gripping the armrests. She'd been telling him about her school project, a presentation on heroes, when his phone had buzzed with another threatening message from Charlotte's lawyers. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to scare you." Lawrence's voice gentled as he looked at Maya's wide eyes. She was wearing a dress Sophie had bought from a thrift store, carefully mended and pressed. The sight of her trying to look presentable for their meeting made his chest tight. Maya slid from her chair and knelt beside the broken porcelain, carefully picking up pieces. "Mom says broken things can be fixed if you're patient." Lawrence watched her small fingers work, avoiding the sharp edges with practiced care. This child had learned caution too young, had learned that careless movements brought pain. His assistant appeared with a dustpan and broom, but Maya had already collected the larger pieces. She handed them to Lawrence with the solemnity of a peace offering. "There. Now it's just a puzzle that needs solving." Something shifted in Lawrence's chest. He'd been surrounded by people who created problems for profit, who saw destruction as opportunity. But Maya saw broken things as puzzles waiting for patience. "Would you like to help me with something?" Maya's eyes brightened. Lawrence pulled out a stack of architectural plans, blueprints for the new children's hospital wing he was funding. Maya climbed onto his lap, her weight warm against his chest. "What's this room for?" "Recovery. Where children go to get better after surgery." Maya traced the lines with her finger, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It needs more windows. Kids like to see outside when they're stuck in bed." Lawrence stared at the plans. His architects had designed efficient spaces, sterile and functional. Maya saw the need for hope. "You're absolutely right." He made notes in the margins: larger windows, skylights, maybe a garden view. Maya continued studying the blueprints with the intensity of a surgeon, offering suggestions that revealed an intuitive understanding of what sick children needed. For an hour, they redesigned the hospital wing together. Maya's ideas transformed the sterile medical facility into something approaching home. Lawrence found himself making notes faster than he could think, trying to capture her insights before they escaped. When Sophie arrived to collect Maya, she found them hunched over the plans like co-conspirators. "What are you two plotting?" "We're building a place where kids won't be scared," Maya announced. Sophie's eyes met Lawrence's over Maya's head. Something passed between them, understanding, gratitude, the beginning of trust. The next week, Lawrence arranged for Maya to visit the construction site. She wore a hard hat that was comically large for her head and steel-toed boots that made her walk like a penguin. The construction workers treated her like visiting royalty, explaining their work with the patience of teachers. Maya asked questions that stumped engineers. She noticed details that had escaped architects. She saw the project not as a building, but as a place where hope would live. Lawrence watched her confidence grow with each answer, each nod of approval from the workers. She belonged here, in this world of creation and problem-solving. But Stephen Grant watched from across the street, his face twisted with resentment and calculation. That evening, Stephen cornered Sophie in their kitchen. "How much is he paying you?" Sophie looked up from the bills spread across their small table. Medical expenses, rent, groceries, the mathematics of poverty laid bare in numbers that never added up. "He's not paying me anything. He's just being kind." Stephen's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Nobody's that kind. Especially not billionaires. He wants something." Sophie's hands trembled as she sorted the bills. Stephen was right about one thing. Kindness usually came with a price. But Lawrence's kindness felt different, felt genuine. Maybe some people are just good. Stephen's hands slammed down on the table, scattering papers like frightened birds. "Don't be naive. Men like him don't waste time on people like us unless there's profit in it." Sophie gathered the scattered bills, her movements careful and controlled. She'd learned not to provoke Stephen when he was in this mood. He saved Maya's life. Twice now. And now he owns her. Owns us. Can't you see that? Stephen's voice dropped to a whisper, more dangerous than shouting. We're his charity project. His feel-good story. When he gets bored, when the novelty wears off, where does that leave us? Sophie's hands stilled. The question she'd been afraid to ask herself hung in the air between them. Stephen leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. "I won't let him make fools of us. I won't let him use Maya for his public relations games." The next morning brought disaster. Lawrence's phone rang at dawn. Thomas, his lawyer, sounded shaken. "There's been a leak. Someone sold photos to the tabloids." Lawrence's blood turned to ice. Photos of Maya at the construction site, at his office, in his car. Headlines screamed about the billionaire's mystery daughter and secret family. "Who?" "We're investigating, but Lawrence. There's more. Someone's been feeding information to Charlotte's legal team. They know about your relationship with the Williams family." Lawrence closed his eyes. He'd been so careful to protect Maya's privacy, to keep her out of the spotlight that followed his every move. Now she was front-page news. "They're claiming you're using the girl to manipulate public opinion about the fire investigation. That your generosity is a publicity stunt to cover up corporate negligence." Lawrence's hands shook as he hung up the phone. The vultures were circling, and Maya was in their crosshairs. He arrived at Maya's school to find reporters camped outside like an occupying army. Cameras flashed as his car pulled up. Microphones thrust toward his window like weapons. Maya sat in the principal's office, her face pale but composed. She'd been pulled from class when the reporters arrived, hidden away like a state secret. "Are you okay?" Maya nodded, but Lawrence could see the fear in her eyes. She'd gone to sleep as a normal little girl and woken up as a celebrity. "I don't understand why they want to take pictures of me." Lawrence knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands in his. "Sometimes people get confused about what's important. They think stories about money and business are more interesting than stories about friendship. But we're friends, right? That's not confusing." Lawrence's throat tightened. In Maya's world, relationships were simple. You helped people because they needed help. You cared about people because they were worth caring about. "Yes, sweetheart. We're friends." But even as he said it, Lawrence knew their friendship had become complicated in ways Maya couldn't understand. Every moment they spent together was now ammunition for his enemies. The drive home was a gauntlet of flashing cameras and shouted questions. Maya pressed her face against the tinted window, watching the chaos with the fascination of someone observing an alien species. Why are they so angry? They're not angry at you. They're angry at me. But why? Lawrence struggled to explain corporate politics to a 10-year-old. How could he tell her that his kindness was being weaponized? That their friendship was being twisted into a conspiracy? Sometimes grown-ups make things more complicated than they need to be. That evening, Lawrence sat in his office staring at the evening news. Maya's face filled the screen, her school photo, images from the construction site, speculation about her real relationship to Lawrence. The anchor's voice was smooth as poison. Sources close to the investigation suggest that Lawrence Hale's relationship with the Williams family may be an attempt to influence public opinion ahead of the criminal charges expected in the hotel fire case. Lawrence turned off the television. The silence felt like accusation. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. "We need to talk." Lawrence found Sophie and Maya in the hospital cafeteria, sitting at a corner table away from the crowd. Maya was coloring in a book, her tongue poking out in concentration. Sophie looked like she hadn't slept. "I've been thinking about what's best for Maya." Lawrence's stomach clenched. He knew what was coming. The reporters, the attention. It's not good for her. She's just a child. Sophie. She needs a normal life. School, friends, birthday parties. Not photographers and lawyers and people asking questions she can't answer. Maya looked up from her coloring book, sensing the tension between the adults. "Are you fighting?" "No, sweetheart. We're just talking." But Lawrence could see the decision in Sophie's eyes. She was pulling away, protecting her daughter the only way she knew how. "I think we need some space. Some time to let things calm down." Lawrence nodded, understanding but not accepting. Maya was being torn away from him by the very forces he'd spent his life mastering. Money, power, public opinion. "Can I still visit Mr. Lawrence?" Maya's question hung in the air like a prayer. Sophie's voice was gentle but final. "Not for a while, baby. Not until things get better." Maya's face crumpled. She looked between Sophie and Lawrence, trying to understand why the adults were making everything complicated. "But he's my friend." "I know, sweetheart. But sometimes friends need to take breaks." Lawrence felt something die inside his chest. Maya was being punished for his mistakes, losing a relationship because of his enemies. "I understand." His voice was steady, but inside he was screaming. Maya slid from her chair and hugged him, her small arms barely reaching around his waist. "Will you remember me?" Lawrence's vision blurred. "Every day." Sophie gathered Maya's things, her movements quick and efficient. She avoided Lawrence's eyes, but he could see the tears she was fighting. "Thank you for everything you've done for us." "Sophie, please. It's better this way." They left the cafeteria together, Maya looking back over her shoulder until they disappeared around the corner. Lawrence sat alone at the table, staring at the crayon marks Maya had left on the paper placemat. She'd drawn a picture of 3 people holding hands, herself, Lawrence, and Sophie. Above them, she'd written, "My family," in careful block letters. Lawrence folded the placemat and put it in his jacket pocket. The next few days passed in a haze of legal meetings and damage control. Lawrence's team worked around the clock to counter Charlotte's narrative, but the story had taken on a life of its own. Every news cycle brought fresh speculation. Every photograph was analyzed for hidden meaning. Maya's innocent friendship was dissected like a conspiracy. Lawrence threw himself into work, trying to drown the silence in his chest with conference calls and contracts. But every decision felt hollow, every victory meaningless. His office, once a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. The architectural plans for the children's hospital wing sat on his desk, covered with Maya's suggestions in her careful handwriting. The broken coffee cup had been replaced, but Lawrence could still see the fragments in his mind. Late at night, he found himself driving past Maya's apartment building. The lights in their window were always off by the time he arrived, but he sat in his car anyway, hoping for a glimpse of the life that had been torn away from him. Stephen Grant watched from the shadows, satisfied. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Lawrence Hale had been isolated from his meal ticket. Now it was time for Phase 2. The package arrived at Lawrence's office on a Tuesday morning. No return address, no identifying marks. Inside was a single photograph, Maya walking to school, taken with a telephoto lens from across the street. On the back, someone had written, "She's beautiful. It would be a shame if something happened to her." Lawrence's hands shook as he reached for his phone. The game had changed. Maya wasn't just being kept away from him, she was being threatened. And Lawrence Hale had never responded well to threats. The war was about to begin. Bang! Lawrence's pen snapped in half. Black ink bled across the contract like a wound. 3 weeks had passed since Maya and Sophie had vanished from his life. 3 weeks of silence that echoed louder than any explosion. The threatening photograph sat in his desk drawer, a constant reminder that somewhere in the city, Maya was in danger. His penthouse felt like a mausoleum. 50 floors above the city, surrounded by luxury that meant nothing. The silence pressed against his eardrums like deep water. He tried returning to work, tried losing himself in meetings and mergers, but every conference room felt empty. His assistant knocked and entered without waiting. "The Williams family. They've moved." Lawrence's head snapped up. His assistant held a manila folder like it contained explosives. "Where?" "Unknown. They left no forwarding address. The landlord said they packed everything in one night and vanished." The folder hit Lawrence's desk with a slap. Inside, rental agreements, utility disconnections, a trail that led nowhere. Maya and Sophie had erased themselves from his world as completely as if they'd never existed. Lawrence's hands trembled as he reached for his phone. He'd called Maya's number 17 times in the past week. Each call went straight to a disconnected message. The city stretched below his window like a circuit board, millions of lights hiding millions of secrets. Somewhere in that maze, Maya was growing up without him. Somewhere, she was learning to forget the man who'd failed to protect her when it mattered most. Lawrence stood and walked to his liquor cabinet. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, hollow eyes, silver stub. "She's just a child, Stephen. She doesn't deserve this. Life isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we can take. You're scaring her. You're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps people in line." Maya pulled her pillow over her head, trying to muffle the sounds. But she could still hear Stephen's voice, poisonous and persistent. "That little girl needs to learn her place in the world. And so do you." The next morning brought fresh horrors. Maya woke to find Stephen going through her things, her few precious possessions scattered across the floor. "What are you doing?" "Getting rid of reminders." Stephen held up a small teddy bear Lawrence had given her during one of their visits. The bear's fur was soft, its button eyes kind. "Please don't." Maya reached for the bear, but Stephen held it high above her head. "This is from him, isn't it? Your rich boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend. He's my friend." "Was your friend." Past tense. Stephen's hands tightened around the bear's neck. Friends don't abandon each other. Friends don't disappear without explanation. Maya watched in horror as Stephen's fingers found the bear's seam. "No, please." Rip. Stuffing exploded from the bear's chest like cotton snow. Maya gasped as if she'd been the one torn open. "There. Now you can stop pretending." Stephen dropped the destroyed bear at Maya's feet and walked away, leaving her to gather the pieces of something that could never be repaired. Sophie found Maya an hour later, sitting on her bed with the bear's remains spread before her like a crime scene. "Oh, baby." Sophie sat beside her daughter, her heart breaking at the sight. Maya's face was dry. She'd learned not to cry in front of Stephen, but her eyes held a devastation that no child should know. "I tried to fix it." Maya held up a needle and thread she'd found in Sophie's sewing kit. Her small fingers had managed to close some of the tears, but the bear would never be the same. "Sometimes things can't be fixed, sweetheart." Mr. Lawrence said broken things could be puzzles waiting to be solved. Sophie's throat tightened. Lawrence's words, filtered through a child's memory, sounded like prophecy. Maybe he was right. But even as she said it, Sophie wondered if some things were broken beyond repair. their lives, their hope, their faith in happy endings. Meanwhile, Lawrence sat in his office staring at his phone. He'd hired 3 different private investigators to find Maya and Sophie, but they'd vanished as completely as if they'd never existed. His lawyer, Thomas, sat across from him with a grim expression. The investigators think they're being hidden deliberately. Someone with resources is keeping them off the grid. Stephen. Most likely. He's got connections from his construction work, people who know how to make families disappear. Lawrence's hands clenched into fists. Somewhere in the city, Maya was suffering, and he was powerless to help her. What about legal channels? Can't we? Stephen's her legal stepfather. Unless we can prove abuse, the law is on his side. Thomas opened a folder filled with legal documents. I've been researching precedents, looking for loopholes. But the system is designed to protect parental rights, even when those rights are being abused. Lawrence stared out his window at the city below. Millions of people living their lives, unaware that somewhere among them a little girl was being destroyed by a monster. There has to be something. There is. But you won't like it. Thomas pulled out a single sheet of paper. If Stephen were to disappear, or if something were to happen to him, Sophie would regain full custody. Maya would be free. Lawrence looked at the paper, understanding the implication. You're suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply pointing out legal realities. Thomas closed the folder and stood up. Sometimes the law isn't enough, Lawrence. Sometimes justice requires alternative approaches. After Thomas left, Lawrence sat alone in his office as darkness fell over the city. He thought about Maya's smile, her laugh, her absolute faith that people should help each other. What would she think of him if she knew what he was considering? But then he thought about Stephen's hands on her, Stephen's voice poisoning her mind, Stephen's cruelty destroying her spirit. Some choices weren't about right and wrong. They were about love and protection. Lawrence reached for his phone and dialed a number he'd hoped never to use. Marcus? It's Lawrence Hale. I need a favor. The voice on the other end was gravelly, dangerous. What kind of favor? The kind that solves problems permanently. I see. And the problem's name? Stephen Grant. Silence stretched across the connection. Consider it handled. Lawrence hung up the phone and poured himself another whiskey. He'd just crossed a line he could never uncross, made a choice that would haunt him forever. But if it meant Maya would be safe, it was a price he was willing to pay. Across the city, Maya lay in her bed listening to Stephen's drunken ranting in the next room. She didn't know that help was coming, that her nightmare was about to end. She only knew that somewhere in the darkness, a man who'd once called her his daughter was moving heaven and earth to bring her home. The next morning brought a knock on Stephen's door. He opened it to find 2 men in expensive suits standing on his doorstep. Their faces were pleasant, but their eyes were cold as winter. Mr. Grant, we represent certain business interests. We'd like to discuss your stepdaughter. Stephen's blood chilled. He'd been expecting this, but not so soon. I don't know what you're talking about. The lead man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course you do. Maya Williams. The little girl you've been disciplining. Stephen's hand tightened on the door handle. She's my stepdaughter. What I do with her is my business. Actually, Mr. Grant, it's become our business. Our employer has taken a personal interest in the child's welfare. The second man stepped forward, his bulk filling the doorway. We're here to offer you a choice. You can take our employer's generous severance package and disappear forever. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Stephen's mouth went dry. He'd underestimated Lawrence Hale's reach, his willingness to step outside the law. How much? Enough to start over somewhere far away. Somewhere you'll never be tempted to return. The lead man handed Stephen a briefcase. Inside were stacks of cash and a one-way ticket to a country without extradition treaties. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires. They turned to leave, but the second man paused. Oh, and Mr. Grant? If you choose to stay, if you ever come near Maya Williams again, we'll finish this conversation in a much less pleasant location. After they left, Stephen sat on his couch staring at the briefcase. $1 million in cash and a ticket to freedom. All he had to do was walk away from the best leverage he'd ever had. But Stephen Grant had never been smart enough to take good advice. That evening, he called a number he'd been saving for emergencies. The voice that answered was rough, familiar. "Jimmy, it's Stephen. I need muscle. Big muscle." "What kind of trouble you in, Stevie?" "The expensive kind. There's a rich guy trying to muscle me out of my territory. I need him to understand that I don't scare easy." "This gonna be messy?" Stephen looked toward Maya's bedroom, where she was pretending to sleep. "Real messy." The next morning, Lawrence's phone rang with news that chilled his blood. "Mr. Hale? This is Detective Santos, NYPD. We need to talk about Stephen Grant." Lawrence's hands shook as he gripped the phone. "What about him?" "He's made some threats. Against you, against your relationship with the Williams family. We think you might be in danger." Lawrence closed his eyes. Stephen was escalating, turning their Cold War into something hot and dangerous. "What kind of threats?" "The kind that end with people in body bags. Mr. Hale, I strongly suggest you increase your security. And stay away from the Williams family until we can resolve this." "I can't do that." "Sir, this man is dangerous. He's got connections to some very bad people." "So do I." The line went quiet. "Mr. Hale, I hope you're not thinking of taking matters into your own hands." "I'm thinking of protecting a little girl who doesn't deserve to suffer because of adult games." Lawrence hung up the phone and called Marcus. Change of plans. "Stephen's not going quietly." "I figured as much. Men like him never do. Can you handle it?" "Mr. Hale, I've been handling problems like Stephen Grant since before you made your first million. Trust me." That night, as Maya lay in her bed listening to Stephen's drunken phone calls, she didn't know that forces were moving in the darkness. She didn't know that her nightmare was about to end in violence and blood. She only knew that she missed Lawrence with an ache that felt like hunger, and that somewhere in her heart, she still believed he would come for her. Even if she was wrong about everything else, she had to believe in that. Because without that hope, there was nothing left but darkness. The final confrontation was coming, and Maya Williams was about to learn that sometimes, love requires terrible choices. Sometimes, salvation comes with a price that can never be fully paid. And sometimes, the people who love you most are willing to damn themselves to keep you safe. The storm was gathering, and Maya was at its center, unaware that her fate was being decided by men with blood on their hands and love in their hearts. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight brought only the terrible weight of waiting. Slam. The courtroom doors exploded open as Charlotte Green strode in wearing a $1,000 suit and the smile of a predator. Her legal team followed like well-dressed sharks, briefcases heavy with fabricated evidence and purchased testimonies. Lawrence sat at the defendant's table, his hands gripping the armrests of his wheelchair until his knuckles went white. The fire investigation had concluded, and Charlotte had managed to shift all blame onto him. Negligent management, she claimed. Inadequate safety protocols. Corporate malfeasance that had cost lives. Charlotte's smile was razor-sharp as she took her seat. She'd orchestrated this moment perfectly. Lawrence Hale, the untouchable billionaire, was about to lose everything that mattered to him. Judge Margaret Foster entered the courtroom, her black robes flowing like the wings of judgment. She'd presided over corporate cases for 30 years, but this one was different. The media attention, the money involved, the human drama, it all felt orchestrated for maximum spectacle. Charlotte's lawyer rose first, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Your Honor, this case is about corporate negligence that resulted in multiple deaths and injuries. Mr. Hale's company knowingly violated safety codes to maximize profits." Lawrence watched Maya in the gallery, her small hand clutched in Sophie's. She didn't understand the legal terminology, but she could feel the hostility radiating from Charlotte's side of the courtroom. "Furthermore," Charlotte's lawyer continued, Mr. Hale has attempted to manipulate public opinion by exploiting his relationship with one of the fire victims. His so-called adoption of Maya Williams is nothing more than a publicity stunt designed to generate sympathy. Lawrence's lawyer stood to object, but Charlotte was already moving to the next phase of her attack. She'd spent months planting stories in the media, bribing reporters, building a narrative of Lawrence as a negligent businessman using a poor family for publicity. The judge called for a recess. In the hallway, Charlotte cornered Lawrence near the water fountain. "You see how this ends, don't you? You lose everything. Your company, your reputation, your precious little girl." Lawrence's face remained impassive, but his eyes burned with cold fire. "You're the one who falsified the safety reports, Charlotte. You're the one who blocked the exits." Charlotte's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the malice beneath. "Prove it." "Oh wait, you can't. Because all the evidence points to you." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "When I'm done with you, you'll be bankrupt and in prison. And that little girl will be back where she belongs, in the gutter." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Charlotte smiled at Lawrence's controlled rage. "Rich men fall harder than anyone else. Remember that." The afternoon session was a massacre. Charlotte's lawyer presented documents showing Lawrence had overridden safety protocols to save money. He produced witnesses who testified that Lawrence had been warned about fire hazards and ignored them. Each lie was carefully crafted, each half-truth polished to a shine. Lawrence watched his reputation crumble in real time, his kindness rewritten as manipulation, his love reframed as a publicity stunt. Maya watched from the gallery, her eyes wide with confusion. She didn't understand why people were saying mean things about Lawrence, why they were making him sound like a monster. When the judge finally called for a weekend recess, Charlotte was practically glowing with victory. Her lawyer had painted Lawrence as a negligent businessman who'd exploited a tragedy for personal gain. "See you Monday, Hale. Hope you've got your affairs in order." Charlotte's parting shot echoed in the empty courtroom as Lawrence sat alone, staring at the fabricated evidence that was destroying his life. That night, Lawrence sat in his study, surrounded by legal documents and financial statements. If he lost this case, he would lose everything. His company would be liquidated to pay damages. His personal fortune would be seized. And Maya would be taken away from him. Sophie found him there at midnight, slumped over his desk like a broken man. "Lawrence." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and despair. "I'm going to lose her, Sophie. Charlotte's going to win, and they're going to take Maya away from me." Sophie sat down across from him, her face calm despite the chaos swirling around them. "No, they won't. You don't understand. The evidence, the witnesses, the media coverage, it's all stacked against me." Sophie reached into her purse and pulled out a small recording device. "What if I told you Charlotte confessed everything to me?" Lawrence stared at the device as if it were a holy relic. "What?" "She came to see me last week. Wanted to offer me money to testify against you. She was drunk, boastful. She told me everything, how she falsified the safety reports, how she bribed the inspectors, how she planned to pin it all on you." Sophie pressed play. Charlotte's voice filled the study, slurred with alcohol but clear in its confession. "The stupid bastard never even read the safety reports. I could have put anything in there. Hell, I did put anything in there. Made-up inspections, forged signatures, the whole 9 yards. And now he's going to take the fall for all of it." Lawrence's hands shook as he listened to Charlotte destroy herself with her own words. "She doesn't know I recorded it. I was wearing a wire, just in case." Lawrence looked at Sophie with new respect. This quiet woman had outmaneuvered one of the most ruthless corporate lawyers in the city. "Why?" "Because you saved my daughter. Because you gave us a family. Because sometimes the good guys need to win." Monday morning brought a reversal of fortune that left Charlotte's legal team scrambling. Lawrence's lawyer played the recording in open court, Charlotte's voice echoing through the chamber like the voice of judgment itself. "The stupid bastard never even read the safety reports." Charlotte's face went white as her own words condemned her. The fabricated evidence, the purchased witnesses, The carefully constructed narrative. All of it crumbled in the face of her recorded confession. "Your Honor," Lawrence's lawyer said, "we move for immediate dismissal of all charges against Mr. Hale, and we request that the court open a criminal investigation into Charlotte Green's perjury and evidence tampering." Judge Foster's gavel came down like thunder. "Case dismissed. Ms. Green, you are hereby held in contempt of court pending a full investigation into your conduct." Charlotte was led away in handcuffs, her $1,000 suit no protection against the weight of justice. She looked back once at Lawrence, her eyes promising revenge even as her world collapsed around her. But Lawrence wasn't watching Charlotte's downfall. He was watching Maya in the gallery, her face bright with joy and relief. "We won," she whispered. "Yes," Lawrence said, lifting her into his arms. "We won." The media circus that followed was different this time. Instead of speculation and innuendo, the headlines told the truth. Lawrence Hale, vindicated. Charlotte Green, exposed. A little girl's hero proven innocent. Lawrence's company's stock soared. His reputation was not just restored but enhanced. He was no longer just a successful businessman. He was a man who had faced injustice and emerged victorious. But more important than any of that was the look in Maya's eyes when she called him Dad. The new house sat on 5 acres of rolling green lawn, with windows that caught the morning light and rooms that echoed with laughter instead of fear. Lawrence had designed it for all of them, a place where they could be a family without the weight of the past crushing down on them. Maya's room occupied the entire 3rd floor, with built-in bookshelves and a window seat that looked out over the garden. Sophie's room was next to Lawrence's on the 2nd floor, close enough for comfort but far enough for privacy. The first night in their new home, Lawrence tucked Maya into bed for the first time as her legal father. She looked small in the large room, but not lost. She looked like she belonged. "Dad." The word still sent shivers through Lawrence's chest. "Yes, sweetheart. Are we safe now? Really safe?" Lawrence smoothed her hair back from her forehead, his touch gentle as a prayer. "We're safe. Charlotte's in prison. Stephen's gone forever. It's just us now, you, me, and Mom." Maya smiled, her eyes already heavy with sleep. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, Maya. More than you'll ever know." Sophie stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She'd watched her daughter suffer through Stephen's abuse, had seen her withdraw into herself out of self-preservation. But now Maya was laughing again, dreaming again, trusting again. "Thank you," Sophie whispered. Lawrence looked up at her, this brave woman who'd fought like a lioness to protect her cub. "Thank you for trusting me with your daughter." "Our daughter," Sophie corrected. "She's our daughter now." The years that followed were the happiest of Lawrence's life. Maya grew from a traumatized 10-year-old into a confident young woman, her natural intelligence sharpened by the best education money could buy. She started the Maya Foundation at 18, dedicated to fire safety and child protection. She lobbied for stricter building codes, funded research into fire prevention, became a voice for the voiceless. Lawrence watched her grow with the pride of a father and the wonder of a man who'd been given a second chance at life. On Maya's 21st birthday, Lawrence gave her control of half his fortune. "What's this for?" "Your real work. The work you were born to do." Maya stared at the legal documents, then at Lawrence, then back at the papers. "You're serious. Dead serious. The Maya Foundation now has the resources to prevent what happened to us from happening to anyone else." Maya threw her arms around Lawrence's neck, and he felt the circle of their story complete itself. Years later, when Maya was a successful businesswoman with children of her own, people would ask Lawrence about the secret to their relationship. He would smile and tell them the truth. Love isn't about blood or money or circumstances. Love is about choice. Every day, you choose to show up. Every day, you choose to care. Every day, you choose family. Maya had chosen to save him from a burning building. He had chosen to save her from a burning world. And together, they had built something that would never burn, a family forged in fire and tempered by love. The little girl who had once pushed a cleaning cart through smoke-filled corridors now sat in boardrooms, making decisions that affected thousands of lives. The broken man who had once given up on human connection now spent his evenings reading bedtime stories to Maya's children. Their story had begun with flames and ended with light. And in between, they had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Sometimes love is as simple as taking someone's hand and saying, "Come with me. I'll keep you safe." Sometimes salvation comes in the form of a 10-year-old girl with soot on her face and determination in her heart. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those miracles last a lifetime. The final chapter of their story wasn't written in courtrooms or boardrooms, but in quiet moments, bedtime stories and birthday parties, scraped knees and graduation ceremonies, the ordinary magic of family life. Lawrence lived to see Maya's children graduate from college, lived to walk her down the aisle at her wedding, lived to hold his great-grandchildren in his arms. When he finally passed, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 93, Maya held his hand and whispered the same words he'd spoken to her in that burning building so many years ago. "Thank you for saving me." But they both knew the truth. They had saved each other. And that salvation had echoed through generations, a legacy of love that would outlast any building, any fortune, any earthly thing. In the end, that's all that matters. Not the money or the power or the headlines. Just love. Just family. Just the choice to reach out your hand when someone needs saving. Just the miracle of two broken people becoming whole. And sometimes, if the universe is kind, those miracles last forever. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Maya Foundation headquarters, casting golden light across the marble floors that had once seemed impossible to a 10-year-old girl with soot on her face. Maya Williams-Hale stood at the window of her corner office, watching the city wake up below. At 30, she had her father's sharp business instincts and her mother's compassionate heart. The little girl who had once pushed a cleaning cart through smoke-filled corridors now commanded a foundation worth over $2 billion. Her assistant knocked softly. "Mrs. Chen? The fire safety delegation from Tokyo has arrived." Maya turned from the window, her smile warm but professional. She'd married David Chen 3 years ago, a pediatric surgeon who understood her mission and shared her values. Their twin daughters, Emma and Grace, were currently in the Foundation's on-site daycare, probably finger-painting masterpieces that would end up on Maya's office walls. "Send them to conference room A. I'll be right there." As her assistant left, Maya's eyes fell on the framed photograph on her desk. Lawrence sat in his wheelchair, his arms around a teenage Maya at her high school graduation. Sophie stood beside them, her face radiant with pride. It had been taken just 2 years before Lawrence's peaceful death at 93. The cancer had come quietly, like a thief in the night. But Lawrence had faced it with the same courage he'd shown in that burning building 20 years ago. His last words to Maya had been simple: "Keep helping people, sweetheart. That's what we're here for." Maya touched the glass gently, then walked toward the conference room where 15 fire safety experts from around the world waited to discuss the Foundation's latest initiative, a global network of fire prevention programs that had already saved thousands of lives. The irony wasn't lost on her. The little girl who had nearly died in a hotel fire now spent her days preventing others from facing the same terror. In the conference room, Maya greeted each delegate personally, speaking fluent Japanese to the Tokyo team, Spanish to the representatives from Mexico City, French to the experts from Paris. Lawrence had insisted she learn languages, understanding that compassion was universal but communication required effort. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to New York. Before we begin, I'd like to show you something." Maya pressed a button, and the wall screen displayed a photograph of a burned-out apartment building in Mumbai. Last month, this building caught fire. 47 families lived here. 47 families who should have died. The circle was complete, but the story continued. Love, it turned out, was the most renewable resource of all. And Maya intended to spend the rest of her life proving it.